All right, let's roll. What are we doing here, Cam? We doing a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? What are we doing? Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com, virtual edition. Who do we have?
Robin Kroll.
O'Neill.
Kevin Butler.
Michael Turksani. Okay, we're here. We're back. We're virtually. We're physical distancing. So we're all on the podcast from our requisite safe locations. We decided to go no virtual background because it was causing some issues. So maybe we'll do that later. So everybody's getting a bit of a sneak peek of what's going on behind the scenes. Robin has a bike on her wall, which is really interesting. Right?
Yeah, aspirations to get it out on the road when this is all over.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So we wanted to kick this off. We've got a series of information that we want to start and some tools that we want to start putting out there, specifically around B2Bs looking to pivot their communication strategies and their marketing strategies from trade shows predominantly, but I guess that there's any sort of like face-to-face interaction that they may have been doing or relying on throughout 2020 is now a pretty big issue for them to be able to drive that value and that marketing pipeline and probably even the level of sales engagement that they may have been used to. So we're going to kick this off in terms of probably we've already identified four or five kind of series here based on the webinars that we're doing. But we're going to start off right now, and maybe we'll let you, Robin, since you kind of put the final touches on that first piece of communication, just talking first about customers and making sure that as we, depending on your organization, you likely have already done some level of customer marketing or customer notice. I mean, I know we've all received hundreds or probably of emails from various environments of companies letting us know about their COVID-19 kind of impact. But let's just make sure that, we don't ignore our customers. So why don't we talk a little bit about what everyone should be doing if they haven't done it already over the next maybe 8 to 12 weeks.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, over probably the last 2 weeks, most organizations have, the priority was to get a message out to their customer base. And what that message should have contained is information on, is your business operating? Most all offices for the most part are closed, but having that information in there, making sure that contact details are really clear. So your customers are very likely going to have to reach out to you at some point. What is the best way for them to reach out to you? Is it by phone? Is it by email? Making sure that contact information is really clear. If there's any day-to-day, such as payments, that they're going to need to know how to go ahead and proceed with that, having that information really clear in an email communication going out to them. So a lot of businesses have done that, and that's great if that's been the starting point. We know that we've been helping a lot of our clients do that. For the most part, they have customer lists and they've been able to engage with those customers, but a lot of businesses don't do that. And really there's no time like a crisis to kind of get things organized. So I would say if any organization does not have a list of email addresses for their customers, this is a time to get it together. And one of the things we've also been doing with our customers, even who have pretty good email lists, there are going to be a percentage of those customers where email addresses have changed since the last communication. And so we've been providing them with those email addresses that have bounced and advising them to go ahead and reach out. Maybe they have a phone number, they have another way to contact them so that they can update their email addresses. So as they're continuing with messages, they will be able to reach them over the next couple of weeks. One of the other things that, and this is also in the customer communication, is using your website to make sure that that critical information that you've sent out in your email, that you're using your website to publish that as well.
Yeah, website and all channels. You want to talk a little bit, Kev, about kind of the data side that you brought up earlier?
Yeah, I wonder, for a lot of organizations, of course, the impact of COVID caught them slightly by surprise in terms of the ramifications of business operations, how support for customers, for prospects, and just its own employees would look like. And I wonder if, I'm sure there's a number of organizations who were caught off guard with the ability to actually communicate quickly with their customers because either not great data in their CRMs or just not set up properly in order to be able to move and mobilize quickly. And even the ability to differentiate between active and existing customers with, say, older clients who you haven't done as much work with recently. And so I think we've all seen the posts on LinkedIn and Twitter saying, I didn't need to hear from the drywall installer from 5 years ago that his business is impacted by COVID today. But I wonder if a lot of organizations now can sit back after a few weeks of dealing with this new reality we're all living in, saying, we didn't have the data in our database managed effectively enough to respond quickly and sending communications to the people who needed it only, rather than an entire list that, we haven't really communicated to half of them in 3+ years.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, what's your kind of perception on, what you've seen, from our clients that have these really robust platforms to be able to pivot in a situation like this? I mean, you don't plan for situations like this, and then those that are kind of becoming very hot in your pipeline, and to put platforms like ours in place over the next kind of in a almost like a faster, accelerated onboarding in order to get this stuff together.
Yeah, there's no doubt that one of the things that a company like ourselves, which is about 6 years in its 6th year of operation, all of the work that we do is all cloud. Like everything that we do, all the systems that we use are all cloud. So moving to remote management was extremely easy. We deal with many of our customers that are, I guess you could say late adopters, or more accurately, they are, legacy systems, which are not as easy to kind of make that transition. So, I think what has really been heightened over the last, several weeks is, organizations that realize, gee, we really are, kind of like needing to step up our game in terms of getting onto, systems that can support not just, sort of this emerging labor market that is pretty much demanding that kind of ability, but actually being able to support our customers properly in, in a virtual or in terms of a, remote workplace environment. So that's one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right, and so from the standpoint of just sort of the basic being able to operate in a situation like this, that has sort of come home, I think, to a lot of organizations. Gee, we are, we need to sort of step up the game. Secondarily, it's like the realization that on top of being able to just basically operate in a situation like this, it's like, how do we now, get a consistent message out? And how is it even possible? We've got a number of salespeople, customer service people. We've got customers that are looking for, the details on, how do I pay? How do I get service? How do I maintain, the service that I need to provide to my customers? How is this partner of mine going to help me do that in this environment? So being able to sort of get those messages out. So from our standpoint, we are getting sort of like the organizations that we have spoken with who definitely got the message, but weren't seemingly ready to kind of move forward, are now realizing, okay, there is sort of some real value in having that consistent message. And here is a platform that I've heard of, but I need to sort of, understand it a little bit more. So, I guess I could say that, some of the discussions that we have been having over the last, 3 years with organizations, we're starting to sort of get some, get some traction in those conversations. And I guess, not that, it's we're in that sort of weird sort of period here, and again, when is it early, when is it not too soon to kind of start reaching out with aggressive messaging on getting it together? Because I think right now we're still in that sort of place where organizations are still getting that first piece done, the first piece, getting the customer comfortable with, okay, we're okay. We can actually, we're okay. Now, when is it that they're going to be ready to kind of,
Well, I think that dovetails nicely. So, I mean, the same marketing automation platform that you're using to drive your top of funnel, and we've talked a lot at length on the podcast and just in our own approach to looking at the marketing automation platform more holistically across the entire kind of customer journey and marketing's role that they play. It is the same system, same technology that is driving that top of funnel, middle funnel stuff. Also can drive your bottom of funnel and your customer communication. So, having that platform is a real benefit if you've already got that going. And I think, to your point, Kev, on data management and data quality, if you've pigeonholed your marketing automation platform into the top of funnel and you only look at it that way, then you may not be in a good position to really execute those. Did you want to touch on that briefly, Kevin? Then we can pivot on to where Chris was going.
Sure. I think you said you did a pretty good job capping that up, but I absolutely think that most organizations were using marketing automation and still are for largely new lead and lead gen initiatives. And so certainly a fast reaction to just dump all customers and databases into a list and just fire it out for the necessity of communicating, updated and changed operations. So I think, to your point, this is certainly a catalyst for organizations to either adopt marketing automation in general as a means for ongoing communications. Like, we don't really know the long-term impact and changes this will cause to business moving forward, even once treatments and resolutions are in place. But what we do know is email marketing and audience communications, which we've always said audiences can be leads and partners and customers, etc. We do know that email is the primary channel to communicate with them, especially with quarantines and stay-at-home movements very much in place. So I think whether you don't have marketing automation today, this is certainly a catalyst to start looking at that as sort of a fundamental requirement for business operations moving forward. And if you do have it, I think it's also a catalyst to say, how are we using it? What have we learned in terms of opportunities to improve how we're using it, or further adopt it across the organization into customer and account, or however your business is lined up, to be able to communicate effectively with your entire audience rather than just new lead audiences.
Yeah, it's great. Some of the most successful customers that we have, as well as through this period, have been the ones that have already had a strong customer marketing initiatives as part of what they're doing, to be able to kind of pivot in on the same platforms and same compliance and same processes. Robin, maybe I'll let you take this one first, but where Chris was going was really, when is it okay? When do we start thinking about marketing again? And part of what our role is right now is helping partners think through how they're going to pivot, from probably a reliable lead generation and marketing strategy that was maybe heavily in trade shows and conferences to fill their funnel and to build those relationships, to now probably, as we've seen with a lot of the research, much more of a digital plan. Why don't you talk about kind of how you see the next solid 12 weeks, I would think, of this being here, and it's going to really affect the balance of the year in terms of large groups of people being probably allowed to be together and start to be okay with companies marketing again.
Sure. So, really these couple of weeks, everybody's been looking exactly what's going on right now, but businesses that are going to be ready for as we start to come out of this, and certainly when we're out, those businesses are the ones that are already thinking of that period right now. Right. So it's not too early to do that, but there's definitely certain things to keep in mind. I think one of the things that we've talked about right away is making sure that you're not tone deaf to the situation, but you're focusing on your brand value.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you have that, that sales type message, but being cognizant of what your customers are going through? And I think one of the best ways to do that is to look back to, what is your brand value? What is it about your products that is going to be of value in getting that message out in a way that's not coming as a very, very heavy sales message, but more of this is a benefit. There's the relationship concept. And for brands to start thinking about that, and nobody has all the answers right away. I think that we need to be clear about that. There's a lot of testing and learning going out. So as you're putting together these messages, test how they are going to resonate with your audience. Think about, all right, so this we know that in this situation, this is an additional value that we can provide our customers. Communicate that message out. And see how that resonates. I think that's the best way to go forward. One of the other things I just wanted to dovetail on something that Chris and Kevin has mentioned about the data and personalization as well. And I think that's another really big focus as you're going forward, making sure that you're tailoring your message to your audience. Whether that's your customers or you're looking at your pipeline. So making sure that you are really trying to connect with them and having a message that's really beneficial to them. And these digital channels, using your marketing and automation platform, that's really the best opportunity to do that. You can use your data, you have an idea of your brand, your products, and your customers, and putting together really targeted messaging that's going to make them want to engage with you.
So Chris, I'll let you go on this one. I mean, we took a pause. I think we're kind of probably next week, towards the tail end of next week, would be when we sort of told our base of pipeline opportunities that we would kind of lay off any follow-up. So one of the things that Goose Digital did right away, after we all kind of decided to work from home on March 13th, was we sent a notice to all of our MQLs and SQLs saying, we're here if you need us. We're not shutting down, but we're also not going to flood your inbox, because at that point it was getting, all the ramp up of all the messaging was happening and people were just trying to adjust to this. I'm not sure the right timing, another week is the right timing, but I think we are seeing an opening up to people feeling like they want to have these conversations again.
Yeah, I think it's the one of the things, and again, just affecting us both personally and in business, is the obviously the physical or the social distancing that's been that's basically been the biggest change in our lives, I guess. Concerts canceled, full tours canceled, Salesforce canceled, everything basically, not being able to sort of, and talking about the pipeline. I've been a little bit surprised, although Kevin and I have been working with an account for the past year that is looking that already was thinking of transitioning out of sort of supporting their pipeline growth with trade show. They probably do between 20 and 25 shows per year, so a couple of trade shows per month, and looking to transition out of that in a somewhat gradual but serious way, getting onto the digital side. And using more digital rather than trade shows. One of the things that sort of came to me was, I was really surprised by what's happened in the last couple of weeks, where people have been letting us know, we were really relying on trade shows. Well, hasn't the conversation for 10 years been that trade shows are over, that people weren't really relying on trade shows, and that they were needing to kind of rely on other things? I've been really kind of from my perspective, it's kind of okay, great, let's talk about it, as we can definitely sort of assist in terms of establishing and working with you on creating that digital approach to help your pipeline, help develop that pipeline. But that has really struck me, is just how many organizations, again, primarily organizations that have been very successful, whether it's a product that they have, whether it's a service that they have, they've been definitely showing their faces and being very very hands-on with their customers and their prospects at these trade shows. So
yeah, and I think we let Kev go for a bit on that as we get sort of the top of our podcast hour. I mean, I think we know. I mean, I think there's a reason for that. I mean, I think if you're at the right show with the right audience and the right message and the right offering, they work, right? I mean, like Kev, like they at least can deploy dollars, likely knowing they're going to get a certain predictable lead flow.
I think so. I also think it comes down to sort of natural human behavior, and trade shows are a known quantity, even if some results are tending to slide backwards a little bit over the years, Chris, to your point. But we know what they are, and fundamentally we understand. We go and meet a group of people in an industry that we seek and target, and can go materialize quality conversations into hopefully opportunities and subsequent revenue. So I think the idea of saying, let's scale back from trade shows in a normal environment where there's no COVID outbreaks and stay-at-home policies in place, you say, let's shift a significant portion of our budget from events into digital mediums and new ideas, like whether it's virtual meetups or whatever else. And most people unfamiliar to doing something like that in the past would say, oh, no way, like I can't risk doing that. I'd rather go with something I know. So this catalyst, this movement's forcing creative solutions to these things. And I think from a marketing standpoint, that's really exciting, because we're going to see, and we've already seen small instances of it, but the longer this goes, the more we're going to see some real marketing engineering in terms of creative solutions to still get in front of audiences in different ways. One of the things that I've been wondering a little bit is, at some point we're going to come out of this and resume what we call normal life and normal business operations, including events and trade shows and the like. And so some events have just either canceled or done the full virtual thing, but whenever we get back to normal life, there's going to be a serious amount of event compression, whereby a lot of these significant events are saying we're going to be in the fall now, and there's going to be a race to do it before sort of that end of summer period into holiday lockdown period. And so I wonder is, if everyone's trying to get senior leaders from organizations to their events, how does someone pick? Where do you go? How do you do that? Like, calendar and event compression is going to be a real thing. So I think there is an opportunity now, Robin, to your point, not in a tone-deaf manner, but an opportunity now to get in front of some of those audiences before they become even more difficult to reach.
Overwhelmed, yeah.
By sheer overwhelming amounts of marketing. That's the perfect word, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, I think it ties nicely into, the next topics that we have. I mean, we didn't talk a ton about it here. Maybe we'll pick off 2 topics next time, but we do want to talk about how to pivot your budget into digital. I mean, it isn't a one-to-one as we've sort of been calling that or using that phrase. You talked about test and learn, Robin, and Kev, you talked about it being a known entity, and Chris, you're also saying everybody's continues to do these shows. So simply saying, well, we were going to spend X and now we're going to go throw that into digital, I mean, is not the answer. So I think you need to there needs to be a plan, and a budget ties into your brand, to your point, and a lot of the things that we want to start to talk about is how to build that plan, how do you actually identify your audiences, how do you put the tools in place, and how do you engage your sales team in kind of like a process that I would call is kind of what we've all been trying to get to. When you think of the promise of marketing automation and CRM and this, even sales plus marketing and some of that stuff that we've talked about, and it's like you kind of now almost have to see that work really well. I mean,
yeah.
You can't rely on going to a show and getting whatever 50 or 100 leads and having the sales guy be able to kind of be in a silo and get a bunch of bluebirds. And like now we're really got to be joined up. So I think that's pretty exciting. So I think that plus designing your funnel, I think I know some of the stuff that you guys are doing Robin and Kevin are really helping organizations put in a funnel that is effective. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if you're a business that is maybe late adopter from a kind of a aligned sales and marketing and automated funnel strategy, snapping something in reasonably short order, as well as basically how to actually go about account-based strategies and activating that through CRM. So we've got a plan of some content, and you can stay tuned for more podcasts and blogs that hopefully will spur some creativity of how to make that happen. I think that's pretty much a good start. I mean, this is our first podcast that is not in the podcast room. So
it was okay. It was okay.
It was okay.
I know I base largely everything I say around visual in-person cues. So I'm just sort of like essentially waiting for one of you to say my name and say, go speak for a bit.
I know.
I think we're being very polite, right? But hopefully, you know, when people are listening or watching to our podcast, they'll give us some thumbs up and tell us how did we do in our first virtual pandemic version of our podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. That's good. We'll leave it with that. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.